round-robin stage of the 35th America's Cup is nearly over. By the end of today, 5 challengers will become 4. We already know it's Frank Camas and his French crew who will be leaving this competition after a gallant but ultimately unsuccessful campaign. With some memorable race wins, they've made a lot of friends here in Bermuda and they'll leave with their heads held high. At the other end of the table, Jimmy Spithill's Oracle Team USA face Peter Burling's Emirates Team New Zealand. If they win, they take that vital bonus point into the America's Cup match itself. The Kiwis will also be keeping a keen eye on the remaining 3 teams as they decide their pick of the opposition for the semi-finals. Plenty up for grabs as we move towards the next stage. Hello and welcome to the beautiful island of Bermuda, providing the paradise scenery and top quality backdrop for the 35th America's Cup, which reaches a critical phase today. I'm Alistair Eakin alongside Ken Reid, veteran America's Cup skipper and president of North Sails, ready for the final day of the initial round-robin phase of the event. Just 4 more races left then in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers, the first of which is a humdinger featuring the defenders Oracle Team USA against arguably the best of their rivals here so far, Emirates Team New Zealand. The winner claims the bonus point to be carried forwards to the match itself. Here are the standings, and after 2 brilliant wins yesterday, the Kiwis are now setting the pace. They know they can top the table with a win in the opener against the Americans. The French have one final race before elimination from the competition. The other crews now jostling for form ahead of the Challenger playoff semi-finals. Conditions today not too dissimilar from yesterday, but a wide variety of wind speeds, potentially between 12 and 25 knots expected. The Kiwis, remember, managed to foil the whole way around the course yesterday. A repeat of that is entirely possible with this kind of forecast. First up then, race number 12 of the second round-robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. A mouth-watering contest between 2 teams fighting for a bonus point to take into the match. Jimmy Spithill's USA against Peter Burling's New Zealand. And the Americans will be bang up for this one, just as their fevered supporters are on the shore. Huge excitement at this showdown, knowing as they do that it could just be the pairing that we see in the match later in the month. They had some rudder trouble yesterday, but USA helmsman Jimmy Spithill's concentrating on that point available.
Who knows? I mean, there's a long way to go yet, but what is important is the bonus point. You know, we'd love to grab that today. Got a great opportunity, so we're really focused on that race.
Yesterday was a trying day for Oracle Team USA. They suffered a broken rudder as they were pre-race training. What has become commonplace for these great sailing teams is the shore team bailed them out by pulling off a quick pit stop and a complete rudder swap out. To no avail, they got beat, setting up this crucial race against New Zealand in search of the elusive single-point advantage to carry into the America's Cup finals.
Well, the Kiwis were sensational yesterday, barely putting a foot wrong in their 2 race wins over the Japanese and the French. They were cruising at high speed over the water and their maneuvers were exemplary. What an opportunity for them today. Here's helmsman Peter Burling.
Yeah, well, for us it's exciting, you know. It's obviously Artemis yesterday's now given us a chance to, you know, have a bit more on the line today, and for ourselves, it's just exciting. It gives us a great opportunity to test our processes, test, things we've been working on and trying to improve. And no matter what way it goes today, we'll learn a lot and be stronger going forward.
Emirates Team New Zealand looked very sharp the last few days. Peter Burling says they're learning every day. A bit of a broken record for sure, but it also appears to be correct. With a win against USA, they win the overall round-robin series. And if they can follow this up by winning the Challenger Series over the next couple weeks, it is they who will carry the single-point advantage into the America's Cup finals.
So a huge amount of anticipation ahead of this first race. Here's the course where it will all unfold, Ken.
Welcome to the great sound of Bermuda, the perfect amphitheater for the modern-day America's Cup. The L-shaped race course features a 2-minute start sequence followed by a critical blast reach to mark 1. 4 quick legs with and against the prevailing southwesterly breeze, followed by a quick burn to the finish only meters in front of America's Cup Village.
So the perfect stage for a race of this kind of magnitude. These 2 boats offering so much in terms of class and experience, and of course that point on the line That
I
point
think you could probably go,
that
Jimmy.
could prove
Just
critical
take it
in the
forward
final
early.
analysis should the Kiwis reach the match as the challenger. Peter Burling, the steady, relaxed skipper who's been talking at length about reveling in the extra pressure of this contest. He's pitting his wits against a wily old dog who's done this all before in Jimmy Spithill. USA with port entry, and the conditions, something that we will discuss in the early part of this race. We were told early on that the wind speeds might get up to the 20s and into the mid-20s, but certainly the early indicators here, Ken, is that that probably won't be happening at any point.
We've had quite squally weather here this morning, kind of rain showers rolling through the area, and now all of a sudden it appears these showers have gone away. There was supposed to be a kind of a calming of the breeze after that happened. It looks like it might have happened a little earlier than weather forecasts predict. What could end up happening here, Ali, is that the boats have probably have their heavier air setups, and we're going to have to see how they adapt a heavy air setup to a lighter air conditions. We only have 10 or 11 knots of breeze out there right now.
Good gap on him here, Jimmy.
So here we go then, race number 12 of the second round-robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. The opening race of the day, it is USA against New Zealand, it is Spithill against Burling, and this one will decide who wins the qualifying stage itself. The tactical battle well underway in the pre-start.
And as we've seen, the port tack, the person who entered on port tack, which in this case today was Oracle Team USA, very often is the leader back to the line, and they kind of pick that bottom end or the left-hand side of our screen. You see the starting line at the top of the screen. It looks like Team New Zealand, at this stage at least, is content to gap off and just try to do a running start, kind of a timed start. Now, of course, as soon as I said that, he's going for a little bit of a hook. I think this is a gap-off start. This is an acceleration start. Oracle Team USA has an overlap right now. Can New Zealand get around the front?
So the two best teams
could be
in this competition
boxing
today.
him out at the weather end of the line. There's going to be a button pushed, I'm guessing.
Will there be a protest?
There he goes. Penalty. We didn't see the red flag, but for sure,
He's still up.
Oracle Team USA had
Just going to the
luffing
mark. We
rights.
can't affect him, really.
Team New Zealand forced their way in at the weather end. We'll go back and look at that a little more in depth in a bit, but Team New Zealand burns off their 2 boat length penalty, and the race kind of starts over with advantage Oracle Team
Okay,
USA.
it says we can just load one inlet. It's pretty close.
So good speeds from both boats as they head to the first mark and head downwind for the first time in the match. Not far shy of the 40-knot mark, and the Kiwis, having had to sit quietly back and let the Americans head off,
Continue all the way here.
that will have stung a little bit, but they will not be panicking. They've been very calm and measured through the entirety of this event so far.
So what we saw out of Peter Burling in that start, you have to push and try to hook, or you have to gap, and he kind of did a little bit of in between and got himself in a tough spot. Sure enough, cost him a penalty, but knowing both of these teams, they're not going to go away.
So let's bring in Guy Endine, who's out on the water for us today, part of the Emirates Team New Zealand outfit here in Bermuda. Guy, there's been so much talk about this matchup, this race. Give us just a flavour of the excitement building as we head into this race and the preparation that you guys put in for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge matchup, and especially to be at this end of the qualifying series. You know, we raced them at the start of the series, and that was exciting. Now I've had a chance to go away and get quite a few races under our belt and match up again. And no surprise that we saw you know, Pete enter on time and try and give Oracle a bit of a nudge in the pre-start. As it turned out, you know, he got a bit of a hook and got the penalty, but that's not the end of the world. It's yeah, it's going to be up to us now to try and chase that lead.
We'll be hearing from Guy throughout the course of this race and indeed the rest of the afternoon. 3 more races to come, of course. with the Americans looking pretty comfortable at this point, but a long, long way to go. Rudder trouble for them yesterday. It snapped in
He's probably going to split.
pre-race practice.
4, 3.
They're looking to anticipate, aren't they? Anticipate what the Kiwis will be up to when they head through this gate.
And Tom Slingsby actually did a nice job of commentating there. He's probably going to split, and sure enough, there is a split on the race course. Very well pulled off by Emirates Team New Zealand, using that power plant that the cyclists, or I think they call them the cyclors, using it to efficiency to get around that mark in a perfect fashion.
Standing by. Go quick. 3, 2, 1.
So the Kiwis splitting the course in the hope of finding a little bit of extra pressure out there, a little bit of extra wind speed, and the manoeuvring a real feature of their master plan through the course of this America's Cup campaign. They tend to really shift the bow through the manoeuvre quickly, don't they, Kenny? We were talking about it yesterday, and they are very, very smooth. It's an unfussy operation.
They look slicker and slicker by the day. You see all those grinders head to toe, kind of getting very familiar with the nubbin of the guy in front of you. I think it's a completely different concept, something that we're going to learn more and more about, not this conventional grinding that we see on the right-hand side of Oracle Team USA, but with the cyclists. Does that power give them more advantage around those maneuvers? That last mark was really hard to pull off at that gate.
3, 2, 1. Could we touch and go?
The Americans out late yesterday afternoon after racing, practicing, having switched over their rudders.
Better pressure on now.
Normal for a team to be out on the water at the sort of times that they were out there, but
Here we go, correct.
nothing can be left to chance. Well beaten by the Swedes yesterday.
But like we were talking about in the pre-game analysis, sure teams bail out racing teams always. That split at the leeward gate is obviously paying some dividends already for Emirates Team New Zealand. The breeze shifts right and left on the race course right now. There's a bit of a left-hand shift. Emirates Team New Zealand took that shift, and now we, in essence, have an even boat race.
A very tight cross between the pair of them.
The dial-down maneuver by Oracle Team USA, who is the right-of-way boat. We got some fans of all right there. Oracle Team USA was the right-of-way boat on starboard tack. Emirates Team New Zealand had to get out of the way. Oracle did a little bear off, made that dip harder. Approximately 62 knots. Bow to stern. Again, we've said it before, has a little Top Gun to it.
3, 2.
You do not want to be colliding at those kind of paces. There would be a messy ending, that's for sure. Average wind speed well down on initial forecasts, as we were mentioning earlier on today. But look at that, just nothing in it between these two top-class outfits.
Each boat has one more tack to go before they get to the gate. I don't think either are going to lay the gate. There's a slight right-hand wave. You look in the top left-hand corner. 243 degrees is what the course was set up to. Actually, we have a fairly substantial 13-degree shift to the right now. What that means is they're sailing a shorter distance on Emirates Team New Zealand, right-away boat, and they get a pass.
Kiwis flying through, but the Americans right there on their tail.
Keep the speed on.
And it's game on yet again.
Okay, let's stand by.
This, the last race in the qualifiers for the defenders. They won't be racing again for 2 weeks after this, remember. Heading straight through to the match. A fortnight to go away and tweak their systems. develop their boat in the way that they want it.
Yep, low bill.
While everybody else scrambles to try and become the challenger.
Gotta watch the zone.
Yes.
It'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, keep him low. Let's dial him down. We got a bit. Hold there. Yeah, let's dial him down. We can push him off it.
And they have a piece. He's trying to get them to dial down so Emirates Team New Zealand possibly doesn't make the gate.
Hold.
This is going to be very, very close yet again.
No way.
Have to take it now. Trim. We go round him.
Kiwis bear away, but the Americans making ground here and sneaking in on the inside. A protest from the Kiwis.
No issue.
Decision time for Richard Slater, the chief umpire here.
I'm not quite sure why the Kiwis would have protested in that situation. They were the burden boat. They were the giveaway boat.
So Jimmy Spithill and Oracle Team USA in the lead once more, but this will go all the way to the wire.
One penalty already, a bunch of buttons pushed, 4 penalties and 2 passes.
Yeah, I don't want to be too fast.
Kiwis have protested again. So here it is at port starboard. Emirates Team New Zealand on port tack. They might not lay the gate, so they decide to try to tack right on the wind of Oracle Team USA. Oracle Team USA comes in. They probably protested because they didn't think Oracle Team USA had an overlap and therefore have room at that mark. Clearly, they did have an overlap. They had room at the mark. No harm, no foul.
Tack right mark, yeah?
You see, heading straight for the gate, an Oracle Team USA. It's all about who has an overlap and when.
Trim. We go round him. He's left us room. No way.
You hear them screaming, no way. That's for an overlap coming into the mark. We'll go back and maybe if we get a graphic, we can just make 100% sure. This is where this the chief umpires, their system they have to know who is right or wrong going into those circles is so critical because it happens so quickly. Even on multiple replays, it's hard for us to figure out exactly what happened in that situation.
Okay, real patch here. We've got to take good yacht
So just shy of the magic mark, both of these teams, the Americans and the Kiwis. The New Zealanders, of course, the ones who made it all the way around the course, up on the foils yesterday against the French.
Okay, keep coming.
What's made even more impressive is they're both in fairly heavy air packages. You have to imagine the breeze is much lighter than originally predicted, and they're still out of the water 99% of the time.
Really close to boundary. Cross oil. Cross oil it.
Yeah, got time to cross oil.
I don't think he's laying it mine.
He's not laying.
So all the time concentrating on what they're doing, but similarly having to keep a very tight eye on what the Kiwis are up to, trying to predict what's going to happen as they head for Gate 4. Oracle Team USA, the defenders of the America's Cup, looking to grab that extra point to take into the match. So what a bonus that would be for them. What a leg up. And it could well be the Kiwis facing them there, of course. Every likelihood. So in some senses, you could look upon this as part 1 of the match, should the Kiwis go through.
Exactly. And this is a really difficult maneuver as the Kiwis just tried to pull off there. That very tight mark rounding. They got slow. I'm not so sure that split may have been a perfect idea going into that mark. That was, no matter how good their hydraulic system is, yes, they got a split here, but that definitely cost them a couple more boat lengths on that really tough leeward gate rounding.
Stand by.
Touch and go. 3, 2, 1.
So the Americans just stretching out.
Getting out of here in about 15 20.
Pressing. Happy for an aggressive build. Clutch off here.
2, 1, here we go. Yeah, big trim, guys.
I'm looking up. He sets up. Okay, keep continuing. Coming into better pressure, come in second. He goes. Okay, better position now. 23, 22, 23.
One more tack for the Kiwis. A slight loss of boat speed, which they've been trying to minimise in all their manoeuvres and doing it very successfully to date.
So we're learning some new terminology out here today. We heard cross oil, other kind of interesting phrases. Let's go back out to Guy and Dean on the water. Cross oil, I'm guessing, is some sort of hydraulic pressure, kind of a code for some function on board Oracle. Are there these types of codes on all the boats now? Kind of a new terminology, Guy?
Yeah, I think with all this new technology, people have kind of got to pave their own way in terms of the terminology and come up with things that suit their team. Obviously, a fair few for us, being a pretty unconventional style of power supply. So, yeah, I mean, it's turned into one of those places where there's been a lot of manoeuvres. So these guys will really be digging deep and trying to get the oil around the boat. I wouldn't be surprised if Oracle are feeling the pain as well.
A penalty picked up by the Kiwis as well, having strayed beyond the boundary. So that's their second of the race. It may prove costly.
About 230 meters in between the boats right now.
And there's the man in charge, Jimmy Spithill.
Stand by. Yeah.
Looking to bring the America's Cup to the USA for the third successive time.
All soft out of this.
Another couple terms that we've heard is he's being very clear as to whether he wants to do a foiling tack or he's used the term touch and go, which means leeward hull touching and then slowly building speed coming out of it. Again, I think these guys all have quite heavy air packages in. We still have New Zealand possibly with that boundary penalty that they haven't brushed off.
Taking a long time to shake that off.
They have to slow down 2 boat lengths. They've tacked 2 out of it. I think they start building upon a penalty if they don't take it in time. Maybe if we get a chance, we can go to Richard Slater and get his interpretation of what's going on at some stage. Lots going on here. This is
Okay, we're going to do 2 tacks and left.
It's rare, isn't it? It is rare to see the errors from the Kiwis. They have been very smooth.
You still see the a blue light flashing on there. Yeah, there's still a penalty light flashing on the Kiwis boat. With that all said, I believe that once you tack after not doing a penalty properly, you actually get another penalty piled on. So this is an unforced error turning into a big-time issue for Emirates Team New Zealand.
Compounding their problems, the New Zealanders, and some of this self-inflicted as the Americans stretch away towards gate 5. They will go downwind for one more time before the blast reach to the finish. Let's have a word with Richard Slater, the chief umpire. Richard, we're surmising from out there that the New Zealanders have not slowed down sufficiently, so they gathered another penalty off the back of the first one.
Correct. They had a boundary penalty at the bottom, but with quite a light right shift, they didn't lose the 2 boat lengths. And then when they tacked the other boundary, we had to add more in. With the shift, it made it very difficult to take that penalty.
Thanks, Richard.
3, 2, 1.
We even had it right.
Amazing.
Well, the tack, you have a penalty and then do a maneuver like tacking, you automatically get another penalty pile on top of it.
Just equalise.
With one more leg into the bottom and then that reach across. This is looking to be a race of what-ifs for the Kiwis. There's no doubt about that. Plenty of chances on that second upwind leg. They had a pass. could have been a ley line call coming into that top gate that cost them the ability to kind of sail their own race at that stage. They made it across on port tack that time, but tacked got rolled by Oracle Team USA. So maybe a couple mistakes that we aren't used to seeing the Kiwis make, and all of a sudden a nice little lead for Oracle Team USA.
The Kiwis only beaten once in this regatta so far. That was by the USA last Saturday. It was by a margin of only 6 seconds. This one looks like being a rather heavier defeat.
No matter who Oracle Team USA faces in the finals, by winning, if they go on to win this race, by winning this race and the overall round robin series, they bring a point. 1 point, it's in effect, it's like a win, or actually the way it's scored, like a loss for the other boat. But they will be up 1-0 going into the America's Cup finals.
Yeah, the easiest way to explain it, I think, is that the challenger, whoever that is, will start on -1. And Jimmy Spithill will then hold all the aces, won't he? And there may be some people who are a little confused, having seen the standings, because the USA currently on 7, the New Zealanders on 8. It would take the Americans to 8, so they would be level, but they would also have one more race to come against the British. But more significantly than that, the Kiwis will not race again. They will be done at this point. And because of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series, where the Americans obviously were runners-up and beat the Kiwis, that is the tiebreak.
That's the tiebreak. That was.
2, 1.
I'm really glad you just made that explanation. In fact, but it's the tiebreak. The tiebreak, no matter what, they're going to be at least tied, and the tiebreak means the America's Cup World Series, and the tiebreak goes to Oracle Team USA.
The defenders of the America's Cup on song here in Bermuda. The qualifying stage belongs to the USA. They will take that bonus point into the match. That is a huge victory for Jimmy Spithill and his crew. They will have the leg up. A key element in the final analysis. They've done all they can do at this point as they prepare to down tools for a fortnight.
And you just heard Tom Slingsby, we just won a race in the Cup. That's exactly what just happened. And congratulations to Oracle Team USA. It's been a tough couple weeks, and now they have 2 weeks off, in essence, to go and test and train by themselves in order to get prepared for that final America's Cup. As the defender, they go automatically there. The challengers keep battling it out to see who will face Oracle Team USA in the finals.
So something of a crushing blow for the Kiwis, who will have hoped for a little better, but a couple of penalties, 3 in total, not helping their cause. There's the breakdown leg by leg.
Exactly, and that, I think Peter Burling goes back to that starting line and says, you know, we either have to commit to a hook or commit to a gap. That little tweener move, kind of semi in one direction or another, and we'll maybe talk to Guy and Dean a little bit more about it. That didn't work for them for sure.
So confirmation of the victory for the USA by 29 seconds over the New Zealanders. Just the second time that the Kiwis have been beaten here in Bermuda. Japan, Great Britain next up, France, Sweden to follow, and Great Britain against the USA to finish things off here on the Great Stand. Standings now looking like this, as we were describing. The USA and New Zealand both on 8 points, but the USA cannot be overhauled now. They will claim the title as far as the qualifiers are concerned, and they have that point, the all-important point to their name for the match in a couple of weeks' time. So let's chat with Jimmy Spithill, the skipper, the helmsman of Oracle Team USA. Jimmy, congratulations. There was a lot riding on that. You've come through. You've not only put the Kiwis in their place, but you've taken that point, which may be absolutely key in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, what a great effort by the team. And I really mean the entire team. I mean, yesterday we had some issues. We actually had a little issue before this race, but it didn't faze the boys. Great training for us to get a high-pressure race like that and come out on top. 2 for 2 now against the Kiwis, so a lot of work to go, but great to see the boys under some pressure.
Let's go back to the starting sequence, Jimmy, and it seemed like the Kiwis kind of pushed, they kind of gapped as the port tack entry you kind of had your way with where you wanted to set up on that starting line. Can you kind of take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, we've obviously been spending a lot of time viewing a lot of the starts now with Philippe and Andrew Campbell, and been trying a few things too in the qualifiers. Not all of it's worked, obviously, but we certainly came in with a strategy today, and full credit to Philippe and Andrew because it definitely paid off there.
Jimmy, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, and enjoy the next couple of weeks. I'm sure there's plenty of hard work to be doing, but for the moment, congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
Big win for the defenders of the America's Cup. This is the start, and it was action-packed right from the word go, Ken.
Yeah, the overlap. Oracle Team USA has the right of way there. Emirates Team New Zealand kind of pushed their way in. They knew they fouled. They actually are gapping off right there in order to try to slow down and burn off their 2 boat length penalty. Not a perfect start, a perfect way to start for Emirates Team New Zealand, but they got back in the race. Here they are crossing. Could they have just gone straight across to the other gate? They tried to tack, they tried to box out Oracle Team USA. They got an overlap on the inside, rounded, and that really was the race right there. Would Emirates Team New Zealand have been better off just to go for the other side of the gate, stay clear, and let their speed do their thing? Coming into the finish line, this is the big moment.
So, victory for the USA. They've got one more to come, of course, a little later on against the British, but it is Sir Ben Ainsley's team that we're taking a look at next up against the Japanese, who of course have Dean Barker at the helm. Japanese seeing off the British on the first day of racing. They've had a bit of a mixed time of it out here in Bermuda. That might be being kind as well. Just 3 race wins in the first 6 days of competition. Taken out twice yesterday. Helmsman Dean Barker's ready for anything this afternoon.
Could easily be 18 to 20 knots. It could likewise be sort of under 10. So I think preparing for a day like today is always hard. But yeah, as you say, you know, we know we're in the semis. You know, there's obviously races that we let slip away when we had control, and I think we're looking for just a good solid performance today, just to give us some confidence going into the semi-finals tomorrow.
Well, it's really a final day of training for a majority of the fleet, Japan included. The die has been cast. Japan will be in the semifinals, but they have no idea who they'll be sailing against. So today, in fact, is the final day to make big changes that may or may not be used in the upcoming Best of 9 series. Intriguing that this time to test happens to be against a team that they may be facing in the semis.
Well, the British made it through to the Challenger playoffs without really convincing anybody about the long-term nature of their threat here in Bermuda. No doubt they'll have used their day off yesterday to regroup and work on their boat, their systems, and skipper Ben Ainsley is in bullish mood.
Well, we've got 2 big races to get today against SoftBank Team Japan and Oracle Team USA. So, you know, 2 tough opponents. The wind speed is up a little bit from previous days, so yeah, expecting a tough fight out there. But the guys, you know, we've had a day off. We're able to go away and do a bit of training yesterday, make some set up changes to the boat and work on technique. So we'll come out fighting again today.
Well, GBR has had a day off after their interesting light air performance. For sure, they appear to like more breeze and have knocked off some of the better teams when the wind is up. A day off has certainly benefited many of the teams so far, as they're always used to test and train and likely add a few more bits sitting in their box of goodies. Time for the Brits to start to shine just before their semi-final racing begins tomorrow.
So this is a repeat of the last race a week ago today. It was won by the Japanese by a healthy margin of 48 seconds. Ainsley outgunned by Barker that day, but these two have both fluctuated pretty wildly in their form since the event began, sometimes in the same race. Japanese with port entry this time as they look to outmaneuver the British crew. 2 fine tacticians on board, 2 very experienced helmsmen looking to outfox each other in the pre-start.
There's no doubt the way this starting box is set up that it was an advantage for Oracle Team USA in race number 1 to come in from the port side and really kind of pick their spot where they wanted to go back towards the starting line. Kind of put Emirates Team New Zealand in a tough spot. Let's see if Japan has that same ability, being the first to dig down deep into the starting line box.
3, 2, 1, go forward.
Second step bit. Okay, driving here.
Race number 13 of this second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Barker against Ainsley, Japan against Britain, and the chase is already on Ken in the pre-start.
It's interesting, we were just talking about the fact that Japan was on port entry coming into the box, but Land Rover kind of cut the corner on them and forced the play back towards the starting line maybe a little earlier than Dean Barker would like. Remember, Ben Ainsley's been the best starter to date. He's won 6 out of 8 starts so far. 33 seconds to go. Low in the box right now. Reasonably close to the starting line. Ainsley shined in an exact position like this the other day. He was able to gap off, but he's still pushing for a hook.
Just keeping all options open, isn't he? Right until the last minute.
I think Barker's in a nice spot if there's no overlap. Although the Japanese have protested Ainsley at this stage. Wow, Ainsley figures out a way to force his way in there.
So the protest from the Japanese. It's the British who cross the line first up. And aggressive tactics early on from Sir Ben Ainsley. He has boxed the Japanese right in. Dean Barker at the moment can barely move.
So he's going to stay ahead to win and literally wait for Japan to stop and be the first to peel away and try to create as big an extension between the two boats as possible. This is, you hear, back the jib.
Well, this is unusual. We don't normally see the pair of them stalled on the start line effectively, but this is all hand-to-hand combat match racing.
Well, at least they're not on top of each other this time.
Yes, they have a little bit of history, these two, don't they, as the British boat begin to edge away and pick up some quality speed now. 26 heading for 30 knots with the Japanese well behind in their wake.
Well, make it 7 out of 9. Ainsley's been clearly the best starter consistently of the group, and this is a good sign too. They popped up on their foils very quickly in only about 10 knots of breeze. So all good signs right now for the British and their supporters.
Coming down now.
The wind speed seems to have dropped still further from when we first got underway, but the British in clear water at the moment, past Mark 1 and downwind, tearing across the top of the water on their foils.
Are we happy with that?
Very mixed out here in Bermuda, the British. Some really high quality performances and a lot of not so high quality ones. They've got the jump on the Japanese in these early exchanges.
We'll have to go back and look, Ali, at how teams did after their day off. Every team has had a day off through this round-robin series. I'm just taking a rough guess that they've all had really good performance, and afterward they've been able to sort some things out, had a little bit of time to take a deep breath and maybe do a couple changes to their boats that they wouldn't be apt to do in a 24-hour period. You give it a 48-hour period, all of a sudden you might have a little more of an opportunity. Try cool new things.
All right.
Building on their lead, Land Rover BAR. No race yesterday, as Ken was mentioning. Squeaked past the French on Thursday. Quite grateful during the qualifying period for their 2 points carried over from the World Series. Been a proper roller coaster for them.
Any gate by Slammy.
This is the start again.
Yeah, and I didn't know if there was going to be an overlap right there. If the two boats are overlapped, but Ainsley figured out, I didn't think he could do it. Clearly, that's why he's there and I'm here. He's figured out a way to get in there in a really interesting spot, but that's not enough. if it's not one thing to put the pain on your guy, let's stick the dagger in. And this was sticking the dagger in. This is why Ben Ainsley is Ben Ainsley. He, very classic match racing move. Get the other guy as slow as possible, then you determine when you want to peel away. And if you can get up on the foils quick, we saw it turned into a 200-meter lead in no time.
Well, it's how he built his reputation, isn't it? In those Olympic Games, 4 gold medals and a silver, the most decorated Olympian in sailing history. And on pretty much every one of those occasions, he has shown a ruthlessness, a will to win that few can match.
Japanese are setting up to be able to jibe and split at this mark. That's why they jibed early. Ainsley will just take a nice fast turn around. Now on that last leg, we saw some pretty good-sized wind shifts. We saw the Kiwis get a big right-hand wind shift and get themselves right back in. It looks like Japan may have jibed slightly early on this mark, maybe not.
Rounding the gate nice and crisp from Dean Barker and SoftBank Team Japan. Riding high on the foils.
Attacking.
This is a very, very similar look to what we saw in race 1. And the Kiwis came out of this right corner. Kiwis came out of each side of the race course, quite frankly. They just got themselves well in phase with the wind shifts, this puffy conditions going down to Guy and Dean. Just for a quick second, Guy, is it still reasonably puffy or is it steady out there? Give us an idea of the shifts.
Yeah, no, it is reasonably puffy down here. There's a few breaks in the middle of the course, but either side's sort of showing its strength at some point. So, yeah, I think they made the right call to split at the bottom gate and just play the shifts as they like.
Sure enough, they have that lead in no time. And we look in our box, we have about a 12-degree right-hand shift coming out of that corner. So nice little graphic that shows the wind. You know, it's hard for us to see the wind actual shifts. We can see the puffs very often on the water, but it's hard for us to see the shifts. So this is, in the upper left corner, this is information coming off of the race committee boat that we can use to inform people why gains or why losses may have been made with this invisible thing called wind.
Okay, attacking. Hey, mine. Yeah, it's building speed and I'm bringing it up. Coming up now. Take it in, guys.
Well, there is a precision to the British operation that we
it's just shifty here.
didn't see a couple of days ago. Their tacking, their jibing is altogether more stable seemingly today. But a little bit of pressure coming on from the Japanese. There the grinders, the relentless work of the grinders.
We're seeing this more and more where the tacticians actually putting their weight forward on the boat instead of being in that grinding position. They're pushing their weight forward, much further forward upwind, and then actually a little bit aft downwind. So technique is being copied throughout the fleet. One guy does it, it seems like it might work. This is a copycat world, there's no doubt about that.
Japanese gaining at the moment.
Such a pressure on the
Need
nose
to
there.
reel in the British. They have been the ones very often who've gained high-quality leads and then found themselves surrendering them. That's been something of a problem for Dean Barker. It's a different conundrum.
3, 2, 1, go forward. All right.
Not much in this right now, Ali, and the Japanese have never been slow. Everybody knows that. Not not only is Ainsley the best starter of the group statistically so far, but Barker's the second best starter. So it's not a shock to see these two guys get in a bit of a tussle.
No problem crossing.
Japanese squeezing them out on the first day of racing by a fairly comfortable margin. But I think slightly different scenario here today, but this is going to be a relatively tight cross.
It is a tight cross, down to 45 meters, and both boats. You can see the gate at the top of the course, right there. There's the gate. There's somebody's head. You can see the gate up there. Both boats are going to have to tack one more time. Never fails, does it?
I'm just waiting for the sunshine to come out again. Please let it happen.
Not the best tack. We're getting down into a little bit lighter conditions. It's only 9 knots of breeze out there right now. So all of a sudden, we saw the Brits have a little harder time get up on their foil in the lighter conditions again. Have we seen a pass? It's very close. The British on starboard, Japan on port. British have right away.
And they will not be giving any ground whatsoever. This is really tight. Really tight. And the British...
That is going
round
to be
the gate. There's the protest as predicted.
Very surprised if Japan does not get a penalty here.
You'd expect that to be upheld.
They get a penalty. Stand by.
There's the penalty. Japanese will have to pay. They will have to slow down a couple of boat speeds. You see the hulls to the left of your screen of SoftBank Team Japan just dropping into the water to slow them up.
2 full boat lengths of VMG towards the mark. They have to drop back, so that lead that they just grabbed, they have to give it away immediately. They still have a penalty. Bit of a right-hand shift still, which should benefit the Brits anyway. The Brits should be benefiting by the
just calm down, Joel.
By the wind shift, and the penalty still is not burned off yet.
Sail our boat. Let them deal with it. Come on, get on the breeze, Steve. Nice.
A little more to come and then light spots. Okay, we're going to be stretching this way. Let's get there, you lads.
There's the penalty shaken off, but really interesting to hear.
Struggling to get depth, CJ, in general downwind at the moment.
Really interesting to hear Ben Ainsley talking to Giles Scott a lot at the moment, and he was saying to him, calm down, let's sail our boat. Trying to keep an extra eye and ear on the Japanese all the time, the British tactician. Let's hear from Richard Slater, the chief umpire, over that penalty decision.
Yeah, hi. We originally had Japan entitled to the left-hand mark. They then sailed out of the zone, became a port starboard with GBR between the gate marks, and as you saw, penalty Japan.
Thanks, Richard. Only 50 meters between them, although the Japanese clearly having to jibe now to head towards the gate. Might potentially be their final manoeuvre before the gate. It's perhaps unlikely, though. Certainly that should be true of the British crew from here, Ken.
We're still in a right-hand shift, so that the Japanese with a right-hand shift are actually making good gains on that side of the course now. So do not, by any means, consider the Japanese being out of this race right now. It's shifty out there. It's puffy and shifty. We can still see it's about it's an 11-degree right-hand shift right now that certainly would be favoring the Japanese. It's just connecting the dots. These wind shifts are connecting the dots downwind, trying to sail the shortest possible course using the shifting back and forth. As we all know, wind never stays the same, and here's the Japanese not being...
Jibing.
One more jibing in for both. Crucial jibe for both boats here right now.
Well, this is nip and tuck, isn't it? Really nothing in it at all between these two, between Land Rover BAR and SoftBank Team Japan. The British just with their noses in front as they round gate number 4 and head on upwind again. Once more, a split course as well. The Japanese
Right,
taking off in the other direction.
Speed hit. Yeah.
Pressure here.
Okay, here we go. Tacking.
They're so much happier in the better breeze, aren't they, Ken? It's a world away from the trials and tribulations they had in light air.
Yep, I wouldn't. Seeing the Japanese just kind of hanging in there right now, I wouldn't call them fast, but I wouldn't say they're slow either. They've actually made it, again, the right-hand shift. Now it's the other side of the race course. The right-hand shift seems to still be in, even a little bit more so. You hear Ainsley saying big gains. Yes, boat speed has something to do with it, but they're in a nice, wind shifts out here. We have proven to be quite a dramatic feature, even in boats that go 45 knots.
Good stuff the other side, Lammy. Yeah, I agree, mate. 30 seconds to boundary. No slower, Dino. 20 seconds. Good feel for the tap.
Guy, we're seeing this right side of the race course, or the right-hand shift anyway. Left side downwind, right side upwind, kind of keep coming into play. Is there anything out on the race course, or even in the landmass, that would show us a little bit why that's taking place?
Good pressure this way.
I think the breeze was tending to go a little bit further right as the day went on. Obviously, those clouds that came over early, a little bit of rain in the morning, flattened things out a bit, and yeah, we might see the course just fade right a little bit as the day goes on.
This is a big cross right now. This is Ainsley. This is the side of the race course, wind shift-wise anyway, that hasn't been paying off perfectly upwind. Ainsley getting back across. He's on port tack. He's coming out of the slightly unfavored side of the course. You got to go to the unfavored side at some point. You can't always force it. Here we are again. This has gotten closer for sure.
This is going to be fascinating, isn't it? As the two bear down upon each other. The Japanese really got some good speed behind them. They are tight.
Just across again. Tight boat race.
So it is going to come down to those tiny margins, isn't it? It's going to be one hull in the water for a few seconds longer than it should be. That'll make the difference.
You got that right. Yes. But it's also not a shocker that as the event moves along, we see fewer and fewer mistakes. Now it's becoming, you notice it's becoming a little more a pure boat race rather than, they just lost 200 meters because they splashed down. All these guys are going to get better by the day, are getting better by the day, and we're just going to see more of this kind of pure sailing.
Yeah, building here. Building. Okay, attacking here.
Hopefully one and in for Ainsley, trying to make it through this gate. Giles Scott talking about ley line.
Okay, mind.
Reasonably good tack. They make it through the gate and blaze off to the finish. They're on starboard tack, so even if the boats are very close, the key is making that gate, is trying to get around that gate in the upper right-hand part of our screen. Can they make the gate without having to tack one more time? Because I'll tell you what, it is close.
And it's getting closer. All the time it's getting closer. The Japanese are gaining.
You hear Ainsley saying, gotta lay, gotta lay. This is the race. It's one. They don't want to do one more tack. They have to lay this gate.
This is my one bed.
Looks like they're going to make it pretty comfortably.
I think they're in a high slowed mode, though. See that it was only going 18 knots, so they're trimming the boat differently in order to go closer to the wind. Not their perfect VMG, but they're just trying to get as close as possible and get around that mark. Game on right now.
Game on for the final downwind leg. Neck and neck. It's all on.
Nowhere near, nowhere near.
Were they close enough? Were they close? They jibe in front onto port jibe. SoftBank Team Japan is on starboard.
Yeah, I've got that. Nowhere
It's
near.
in the hands of the judges right now, of the umpires.
And there's the decision from Richard Slater. He's taken the advice of Sir Ben Ainsley, who is kindly offering him his advice.
Wow. Wow.
Exciting race for all the spectators on the shoreline here on the Great Sound in Bermuda. So many of the boats out there as well, offering a wonderful vantage point. Great showdown between two outstanding helmsmen in Ainsley and Barker. Two fine crews.
That course setup, Ali, is like nothing we've seen. That last little leg, that tiny little leg, was all about that one jibe. That one jibe, whether they could pull it off or not, and it was close. We're gonna have to go back and take a look at that. But that was it, that was the race. Now this blast reach into the finish, not a lot of passing lanes, but that short little leg, we never would have imagined that it would have had potential consequences that it did. And Ainsley and the Brits just get across.
Closing in. Sir Ben Ainsley and the British crew ripping down the runway.
You notice how quiet it is on board on a leg like this, because there's really no tactics to be discussed. Everybody's just doing their job. Cruising along at 35 knots and 9 knots of breeze.
And the game is up now for SoftBank Team Japan. They will trail in behind. It will be another disappointment for Dean Barker, the 6th time that they would have been beaten here in Bermuda. But something of a change in fortunes for the British. Squeak through against the French to make sure of their spot in the Challenger playoff semi-finals. But a win here to lift the spirits after a testing campaign, much improved. And they have seen off the Japanese threat. Through the finish line, some 13 seconds behind SoftBank Team Japan.
Nice, boys.
And in the final analysis, it won't change proceedings regarding the standings overly. There's confirmation of both of the results so far today. The USA with that all-important victory over the Kiwis, which has given them the bonus point that they can take through to the match at the end of the month. And Great Britain, real morale booster with victory over the Japanese. Here are the standings then, the USA and New Zealand up top, with the Americans obviously claiming the qualifying stage. Great Britain now up to 6 points, 4 race wins and a couple of points carried over from the World Series previously. So the sport of sailing, as we know, is a technical business, from the techniques and tactics used by the sailors to the implications of using Mother Nature as your engine. The subtleties of the 35th America's Cup are varied and nuanced. One of the most significant factors in any sailing race is, of course, the wind, but it is a fickle and unpredictable beast. Our very own Ken Reid explains.
As anyone who's ever played golf knows, wind doesn't blow across the area statically. It comes down in pulses, blowing harder at times and softer at times. Sailors refer to these as puffs and lulls. It also blows in a seemingly random pattern, coming from the right or coming from the left, or the wind could possibly rotate throughout the day in a persistent fashion. Quite simply, wind velocity and shifts always are a major factor in any sailboat race. On the water, skippers and tacticians look for darker patches, meaning puffs of wind, and they look to avoid glassy area, meaning lighter winds, so a good set of eyes is a tactician's best friend. The shifting of the breeze back and forth is a bit more hypothetical, and sailors are trained to have a feel for whether a puff of wind is coming at them from the right side or the left side of the course. There are often patterns to this shifting breeze based on that day's specific weather. The tough part is that every day and sometimes every minute is different. The final analysis is to always stay in more wind than your opponent and to sail the shortest distance around the track, which means utilizing the right and left-hand shifts of breeze. So lots of tactics and judgment is always required for any sailing team as they aim to get the most out of the invisible force that powers them around the track.
So a hopefully helpful explanation from Kenny regarding the wind shifts that affect all the sailing, of course, but particularly here on the Great Sound, which is fluky, I think you'd call it. We are ready now for the third race of the day. It's France against Sweden. The last time that we'll be seeing the French in action out on the course, because their America's Cup, as we've been talking about, is effectively over already, condemned to elimination yesterday. Helmsman Frank Camas still smiling.
To go sailing today against for our last race, but it's a good moment for us, and we have to enjoy and enjoy this time. Yeah.
The swan song for Team France, and when they love to get their second win against Artemis Racing to hopefully be a jump start for their program looking ahead. Traditionally, America's Cup startups are long odds, and France is no exception. But a steep learning curve and a couple of unanticipated wins puts France in a great spot for a longer Cup run in 2 years.
Well, the Swedes found their feet yesterday. They've been underwhelming for large parts of the competition so far, but wins over the Americans and the Japanese yesterday really did put fuel in their tank, a pep in their step, as helmsman Nathan Outridge explains.
Yeah, we were happy with how we raced yesterday. Two really good starts and pretty solid around the racetrack. So yeah, we're looking forward to today's race. You know, it's the final race of the round robins, and you know, we got our eyes focused on next week with the semis. So today's about, you know, just slowly improving our performance.
Sweden looked really strong yesterday. Much improved aggressive starting launched Nathan Outridge and company out of the blocks, and they never looked back. Here in Bermuda, it is still the thought that when the breeze is up, the Swedes are fast, very fast. And a final tuning session today will prep them for whoever they're going to face in the semis beginning tomorrow.
The Swedes then looking to build on their form and confirm what we think we know about them, that they are very dangerous on any given day. The French, well, they can throw everything at this and see what happens. Frank Camas has given heart and soul to this campaign. Team Frank. It's been renamed in his honor. Sadly, they have come up short, but not through a lack of effort or application.
That's good. My theory is if they're not making fun of you, then you have something to be worried about, and that's good. That's good stuff.
So Nathan Outridge is Swedes and Frank Camas is French. Outridge will be wary of Groupama Team France, having been surprisingly beaten by them on the second day of racing here. And they have come up with the goods on a couple of occasions to shock more fancied teams out here in Bermuda. So they're more than capable. Their boat speed, as we know, Ken, is pretty decent. It's all about the maneuvering and the manipulation of the boat itself.
And that 10 knots of wind speed that we're seeing right now is the wind speed that they've had their most success in. So let's just hope they can be stable on the foils and make this a boat race. These guys look stable.
So let's bring in Guy Endine, part of Emirates Team New Zealand, and he's on the water for us this afternoon. Guy, there's going to be some pretty disappointed Frenchmen out there. Is that going to be difficult for them here?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's been a big campaign for them. They've come a long way, and to steal a couple of races in this series has been massive for them. And I think today is probably, you know, maybe a celebration of their hard work they've done, and giving it a good shot here will be a really good result.
Race number 14 of this second round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Sweden against France. Outridge against Camas, the pair of them head-to-head, but facing a very different couple of weeks. One safely in the Challenger playoffs, the other, frankly, contemplating the beach.
Frank is not in a perfect spot right now. They're early and he's up high, and Nathan Outeridge is in a really nice spot right now to be able to kind of either push him on the other side of that starting mark, or see the starting line well up here in front of us. Outeridge is what we call in the lured position right now. Looks to me like they're both kind of late. They just might be gunning it towards the line right now. This might be an acceleration contest.
Yeah, this is looking like every inch the drag race at the moment. Slight change of course from the Swedes as they tighten up with the French, but
he's boxed out right now. Right now, Frank Camas does not have the legal means to get down inside there. If he can break the overlap, he can do it. If he doesn't break the overlap, he's in trouble.
So the protest lodged by the Swedes, Frank Camas has not judged that just to precision, and the decision pending.
Play-by-play commentary by Nathan Outeridge. Come on, that's a foul, and sure enough, it is a foul. So he did not have the ability, there was an overlap, and he did not have the ability to squeeze his way in there. Very similar to what we saw in the very first race. You see that overlap. Those bows right there are overlap with Frank Camas. That means he does not have the ability to force his way in. Even with a 6-inch overlap, overlap's an overlap. They have to slow down those two boat lengths.
Yeah, it's a painful process for the French from here, and the Swedes will stretch away past the first mark and downwind. Already steaming along at 32, 33 knots. Let's have a brief word with Richard Slater, the chief umpire. Richard, you're getting a lot of assistance from the boys out there on the boat today.
Yeah, we're certainly a bit busy today. Yeah, so we had France as a windward boat failing to keep clear, and doing so at a start like that, we decided it was deliberate and gave them a double penalty over.
Thanks for your time.
Harsh. Somebody got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning. That Richard Slater is harsh. There's a moment of truth typically for the French. How stable are they going through their maneuvers in this breeze?
Well, that largely an untroubled maneuver.
One of the best we've seen him do, so that's a good sign.
This wind speed's dropping a lot though, Ken, through the course of the day. With any luck, there'll be enough to come for the final race of the day, featuring the British against the Americans. But having started out at around 11 or 12, we're now down to 8 or so.
This is the forecast, although it is all happening a little earlier than people had thought. They thought this breeze drop might happen later in the day.
Ouais, ça va être jibe bientôt.
The jibe coming up for both boats.
Swedes looking smooth at this point. Seems to be quite the same noise coming off their boat today.
Clunking noise that always comes off Artemis. They don't have that squealing jet engine sound, which is nice for us and for
that's probably a good development.
All of our viewers and all the dogs watching at home.
Improving design process.
But that clicking, clunking, everybody's hydraulic systems works differently, and there's at some stage we might be able to see under the hood and see why it's making that noise. Oof.
So the French deciding to split the course, but they've really slowed up in that maneuver as they round the gate.
That double jibe, what some of the teams call a Celia, to do that tough last second jibe around the bottom mark.
Is that a late decision from the French, Ken, to take this path?
You know, I'm sure if they had that back again, they would have just followed straight on in, because that's almost a race ender if you don't pull it off the way they did. Right-hand wind shift though, but Artemis heading for that shift.
Pressure in front. So we do hard on starboard.
Well, they've lost a lot of ground, the French, and the Swedes will look to capitalise now.
Yeah, we will be now. Pressure's up too, though. Take it into height when you can.
4 wins, 5 defeats for Nathan Outridge here in Bermuda. 2 of those wins yesterday, when it really just looked as if everything was beginning to click.
20 seconds.
And I like seeing that aggressive action at the start. He easily could have just put the hammer down and probably been first to the mark. Hopefully France might have just gone outside the boundary.
Just inching their way in, and they've picked up another penalty as a result. So for the Kiwis in the opening race of the day, Reed, the French here against the Swedes.
A lot of
self-inflicted pain, that one.
Exactly. And a lot of times it's easy for the helmsman just to win a start and to take a little bit of a win, but Nathan went for the kill there. He didn't just put the hammer down and try to beat the guy to the mark. He tried to end the race early, and that's a sign of a confident match racer.
Better pressure in front.
Something that Nathan has continually told us that they've been working really hard on over the last months, is to improve his match racing abilities, because let's face it, he's a flat-out fast Moth 49er dinghy sailor. Not a lot of match racing in his past, so it's something that's certainly been working on.
Okay. Nice work, boys. Good pressure on the boundary in front. No, it doesn't. That's okay, left arm slightly. Take it out.
So looking like something of a procession for the Swedes, but the French getting all their messages out as they head out of this competition here. Merci Bermuda. That will be thanks that will be echoed through all the teams. The venue here, second to none. Wonderful stadium racing, close to the shoreline, the perfect amphitheatre in the great sound for all the spectators to see the action. And kind, friendly faces everywhere you go to help you on your way. Yeah, not especially clean, but they look to recover reasonably quickly.
9 knots of wind speed out there right now, so not probably the perfect breeze for their heavier air packages. Maybe go back to Guy and Dean out on the race course. Guy, I think it's up to you to announce to the world Emirates Team New Zealand is in a nice little spot, being the winner of the challenger side here. Guy, who are you going to choose in the semifinals?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be announcing that right now, but
come on,
disappointing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess it gives us some nice options, and you know, having a good look at all the racing today, we'll be able to make a good decision on who we pick, and hopefully that works out for us for the track.
Well, I know they've got a lovely chase boat out there for him to sit on, but I didn't realise it actually had a fence on the boat, because he's sat firmly on it. Sorry, Guy. Sorry for putting you in that very awkward position, but we got to have a shot.
Yeah.
Good, nice try.
We haven't taken. It's not the last run we've taken at you here today, so just stand by. Getting lighter on the race course. There's no doubt about that. These guys are struggling to foil a little bit right now with the heavy air foils in the boat.
25.
So, Guy, you're saying that clicking is the hydraulic part of their main sheet system, you believe, on Artemis?
Yeah, I think all these teams are running the pretty different setups. So you'll see in here things going on the boats. Some strange sounds, quite new to the sport, I guess. But yeah, until this is all over, we'll all be revealed then.
Ali, it's interesting, the teams won't purposely just kind of show us all under the hood when this thing is all said and done. But in this world of kind of intermixed professional sailing, a lot of these teams will have members of other teams involved with them right away. So really, even though you're trying maybe to keep some things a secret, nothing's a secret anymore. The teams are going to know what everybody did for every little bit and piece on their boats as soon as this event is over.
So with any luck, you're getting a pretty good idea by now, those of you who've been with us in Bermuda over the course of the last few days, about exactly how these boats are powered, the hydraulic energy that's generated by the grinders on board. But we came across a pretty decent analogy, I think, not so long ago in describing it all regarding a set of bagpipes. Effectively, you want to play the tune, i.e. you want to trim your wing, you want to be able to manipulate your boat in the way that you'd like, and these guys are basically putting air in the bag, and then that air can flood through the pipe so the tune can be played.
Yeah, exactly. Go beyond it. There's a bit more pressure beyond it.
Do you play the bagpipes, Kenny?
I don't, but I'm so intrigued. I'm so intrigued that I may now. I mean, I'm going to get lessons as soon as I'm done with this. That's fantastic. That was inspirational, by the way.
Well, there is no shortage of hot air in this commentary box. One thing we know, it is tough work for big, strong men. And even those who you meet who are ripped in every which way, some of them, if they're not prepared to put out the numbers, if they can't physically put out the numbers to generate the sort of power that these boats need, they're getting left off the team.
That's exactly right. And some of the fittest people you've ever met in your life are not strong enough to make it on these teams. They all have heart rate monitors, which I believe we're going to actually be getting a little access to here at some stage as we go into the semifinals, to see what kind of loads and pressures and physical strains on these guys that we've seen. They're all two-a-days now, the two-a-day workout programs, Olympic training regimes that are really much more like distance athletes, you know, long-distance rowers, swimmers. That's the type of training that these guys have done. Nothing like the America's Cups of the past, where it's mainly just strength.
So they're a long way out in front here. Nathan Outridge's team scurrying to and fro across the platform and making sure that everything is running smoothly.
Really a final day test for these guys. They look pretty smooth.
And a tough next couple of minutes for the French team. You were talking to me in advance of today, Kenny, about what they might do from here. Clearly, in the broad brush sense, the next question is, do you keep this team together in some way, shape or form for another assault on the Cup? But in the short term, is there a possibility of them sticking around in Bermuda, maybe operating on some kind of level as practice partners for the USA, who of course won't be match racing?
You never know. I believe it's in the rules, and I'm not sure if Richard can hear us, but I'm pretty sure it's in the rules that Team USA has equal time. They can use this race course, even though the semifinals are going on, and I believe they can test against others. So who they test and train against, or if they just go off on their own, it'll be really interesting to see.
Is it preferable? I mean, I'm assuming it's preferable to have somebody to race against.
Yeah, well, you always want a benchmark, but the problem is your benchmark might be changing every day. If they somehow got Team France to be the benchmark, they could keep them exactly the same and actually benchmark and actually find out if their improvements were working based off of a constant rather than a moving target, which other teams are moving targets very often. Still getting lighter out on the race course right now. Ali down to 8.5 knots or so on the race course. Leg 5, we were around that one gate one more time, then that quick little run, which was a major moment in the last race. That's the shortest, certainly the shortest leg we've seen after we round gate 5 and around the final mark heading towards the finish. Breeze is getting lighter all the time, as we see in the flags, not exactly flailing out there. These guys are sailing displacement mode with their heavy air wings or heavy air foils inside the boat today, not popping out of the water very effectively.
And that presumably was based upon the fact that the forecast wind speeds were much, much greater than this. So at what point do they have to make the call about the kit that they're going to be using?
Yeah, it's an in the water thing. They have to put these foils in before they go in the water, and once they're in the water with them, it's a project to change them. So yeah, these foils are a morning time decision. They really rely, even though we're in this really short course racing, they very much rely on the weather programs that they have, the people that are in charge of meteorology within each of the programs.
So there really is no opportunity between races to go about changing your foils. If you're racing in race 1 and then 3, say, would that be time enough?
Yeah, I'm sure they could adjust like the 4.5 rake, but they could put on a bigger jib. You know, we might see the code. This is a code 2 jib on board the boat, 2 of 3 different sizes. They do have a jib that's almost twice this size that they could put in. Maybe I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen that larger jib. We might in the next race between USA and Great Britain. We might see the big jibs come back on again.
Good pressure to tack in about 20. See it?
So in the meantime, the Swedes oozing confidence.
Pressure in 5. Any time for that. Yeah, you're in.
24 knots as opposed to the French at the bottom of the course. 10 knots slower and labouring their way forwards. Fly time, a big differential there as well.
Yeah, that's the story. That we always knew that when we came to Bermuda, this fly time was going to become a key number, and nothing more obvious than the difference between these two boats right now. You're out of the water, you're fast. You're in the water, you're not. And it sounds reasonably basic, but there's not much more to say.
So the next leg, a very short one, as previously described. And the Swedes, who of course have never won the America's Cup,
Hold a bit.
beginning to find a degree of consistency. They've been bothered both here and in the Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series by inconsistency. Talked up, very much talked up as they came into this competition 10 days or so ago. Olympians everywhere, not just Nathan Outridge. Ian Percy, of course, the tactician, a very, very key role for him on board. So already they're at the final mark, and they will stretch away now.
Don't forget, by the way,
the runway to victory.
Ian Jensen, the wing trimmer on board this boat. We always shortchange him. He was sailed with Nathan Outridge in their Olympic success in the 49er class. So I apologize to Ian. Look at that, they've shifted. You see, it's a copycat world. They've shifted the tactician back. Now, the only thing, unlike Oracle, he doesn't have a bicycle to ride on right now. But everything is copycat at this stage. Will they have a bike in by tomorrow morning? That's the interesting part.
Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? But as we know, not beyond the realms.
It doesn't seem to make any difference if I'm on the handles or not.
Gate 5 for the French. Still a fair way to go.
You hear Percy saying it doesn't matter whether he's on the handles or not. He's lobbying not to have to grind around the race course and just sit there and kind of be a tactician, I think.
At this stage, who could blame him? Feet up. We'll get him a pair of slippers and a pipe.
You got to give guys like that credit, though. I mean, he's always been a fitness freak anyway, being a star gold medalist in the star class, and But he really, these guys, to stay on the boat as a tactician, you had to up your game dramatically. So not only be the general manager, in essence, of the program, but to get fit enough to stay on board the boat. He's on the boat because he's fit to be on the boat, and it's not an easy deal, I can tell you that.
So here come the Swedes, zooming towards the finish line, 33 knots. And another exhibition race, really, for Nathan Outridge and his crew. Artemis Racing, a gathering force as we head to the playoff semi-finals, and offering a serious threat now. Finding form a little belatedly here on the Great Sound in Bermuda, but offering real signs of life at this point. Go big or go home, Nathan Outridge was saying in advance of this competition. They are beginning to go big, and I think there will be plenty who would like to avoid them come the final analysis in the playoffs.
I would have to agree, and they also get very high marks for the best flyby after the finish, between the finish line and the stands. They got a massive cheer from the huge crowd. I mean, really big crowd, even on a kind of semi-rainy day. Huge cheer for the best flyby by far we've seen, while not ending up in the parking lot. Very close.
Final reach for Groupama Team France. Their challenge drawing to a premature end, but as we have discussed previously over these last few days, a lack of time and a lack of funding ultimately probably the key factors in their elimination early on here in Bermuda.
I think that time bought technique too. We've seen the technique of all these teams, just the bar raised every single day, and once you start behind and everybody keeps getting better, it's hard to ever catch up that gap, and technique has led to speed in more ways than one. Final cruise in for Frank Camas and his squad, and they've certainly had the biggest smiles on their face this whole way through. It's easy to get frustrated if you're a French fan, but you know what? These guys are a team to be very, very proud of, with a pedigree that could lead them to great things in the future. We all hope.
So the final moments of the French challenge. It's the end for Frank Camas. It is the end for France here in Bermuda. Well beaten again. Perhaps an illustration in that race of the troubles that they have had here in Bermuda. Hugely popular. Lots and lots of French support, and in Frank Camas they have had the smiling face of the America's Cup. And there it is. He's still smiling, and he will be much missed in the latter stages of this competition. So 3 results so far today. Wins for the USA, for Great Britain and for Sweden. New Zealand, Japan and France going down to defeat, and 1 race left in the day. Great Britain taking on the USA, Sir Ben Ainsley taking on Jimmy Spithill, 2 former teammates of course. USA and New Zealand on top of the standings with 8 points, but the Americans have claimed the qualifying competition. They will take that extra point, the bonus point if you like, into the match at the end of the month. The Kiwis edged out in that regard. Britain on 6 points now, Sweden with 5, Japan 3 and France going home. Heavily populated America's Cup Village. Lots of terrific racing on show this afternoon. We're not quite done yet. We're going to check in with Nathan Outridge, who is, of course, the helmsman and skipper of Artemis Racing, the Swedes. Nathan, you are finding form rapidly, it would seem. Yesterday, an excellent day. You've built on it nicely today, I would suggest.
Yeah, it was a pretty tricky day. It was really light, but You know, it was a bit nerve-wracking in that start when we fluffed the job, but we started really well from there.
So Nathan, back to that start, it seems like you've been more aggressive, more comfortable in the starting box as we've gone along in this competition. You had a chance just to kind of stretch it out and go fast toward the mark, but you decided to go for the kill. Can you take us through your mentality as to how you make that choice between the two?
Yeah, it's a tough choice. Obviously, if we get that wrong, Frank just rolls around us and sails away. But you know, we had good judgment on that one, and I think we're just trying to get better and better at every start and every situation. And we really wanted to push that one hard.
Nathan, many congratulations. That's the end of the day for you, and another victory in the bag.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks to Nathan Outridge, and we're going to take another look at how the race unfolded.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, just that tiny little overlap, and Frank's not allowed to stuff his way in there. If Outridge doesn't want to give him room, he pushed the button. Frank, there it is, a tiny overlap, and that's the moment where the chief umpire, Richard Slater, decides that there is a foul. It gives Artemis a fair jump, and they were just stable today. They were solid and stable, even in that light air. These guys are getting better by the day. Everybody's getting better by the day, but I think, Ali, you said it best. Who would want to race these guys right now? So this is going to be very interesting decision time for Emirates Team New Zealand on who they do want to race in the semifinals.
So there are all sorts of different ways to catch the action out here on the Great Sound, of course. If you're lucky enough to have access to one of those, you're probably in pole position, I would suggest. But we have all kinds of wonderful vantage points. Let's have a word with Frank Camas, who, of course, has just finished his America's Cup campaign. Frank, commiserations on defeat today. Tell us how you're feeling after all the hard work. The elimination must be a real body blow.
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Of course, yeah. I was just asking how emotions are on the boat, because that's the end of the campaign now for you. Tell us how you're feeling.
Our feeling, for sure, it's finished since yesterday, but I think we did a good campaign. Not today, for sure, but we are struggling with the small board. But we enjoy to race this campaign, and we are proud to with the job we did with all the team during 2 years. I think we achieved a good level at the end, but not enough. We missed time, but we are okay with what we did.
So Frank, I think the question that everybody wants to know the answer to, and I'm not so sure you even know the answer to, is your sponsors, Groupama, your supporters. Is there any indication that they're in for the next America's Cup campaign at this stage?
Yeah, for sure we work on that. We are not sure yet, but it's the goal. We learn a lot this time, and we want to use this experience for the future and for the next cup. We want to be in the starting line next time.
And Frank, what about the short term? Is it off home, straight back to France now, or do you stick around in Bermuda for a while? We were even contemplating the notion that you might stick around out here so that there might be some practice racing with Oracle Team USA potentially. Is that even on the agenda for you?
Yeah, well, the objective is to stay here with all the team until the end of the cup, and we want to. We would like also to sail again with the boat, and maybe some lineups with the other team. I think all the team is focused for the next time, and we want to continue to work and to sail with all the competitors. I think it's a good time to do that.
Okay, well, it's been great having you with us. Have you got a brief message in French for your fans, your many supporters out here and obviously back home too?
Oui, ben merci à tous nos fans. On a reçu beaucoup de soutien et de support. J'espère qu'on a produit un beau spectacle. Malheureusement aujourd'hui, on termine pas comme on aurait aimé, mais je crois qu'on On a découvert la coupe et la coupe est addictive et on a vraiment envie de continuer pour la suite et j'espère que le spectacle va continuer sur les demi-finales et les finales et je crois qu'il va y avoir du suspense jusqu'au bout donc j'espère que tout le monde regardera la coupe jusqu'au bout.
Frank, thank you very much indeed for your time and congratulations on your spell out here in Bermuda. It's been great to have you with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Congratulations, Frank.
So Groupama Team France on their way out of the competition and time for our last race of the day. Great Britain and Sir Ben Ainslie against USA and Jimmy Spithill. These two, of course, have already seen action today. And let's have a little look at how they line up.
Well, for Ben Ainslie and the BAR team, this is their last chance to try something a little new and different before the semifinals start tomorrow. BAR has won 7 of their 9 starts. I think it's fair to say that Ben Ainslie may be the most aggressive starter here. Really nothing to lose in this race, so the fireworks could be flying between these two old friends from the last Cup campaign.
So the battle line's drawn yet again to former teammates from that dramatic San Francisco fairy tale for Oracle Team USA. Now adversaries on the water, Spithill and Ainslie. And not too much love lost between these two. The rivalry, a very real dynamic to this showdown. Sir Ben Ainslie and Jimmy Spithill going head-to-head. The most decorated Olympic sailor of all time and an America's Cup veteran gunning for a 3rd victory in a row. He's shooting for the history book, Spithill. Fascinating matchup.
Nothing to lose at this stage for either of these guys. This is the last time Spithill's going to be even racing for a couple weeks, technically. Ainslie, they just need to keep improving going into those semifinals.
So let's bring in Guy Endine, part of Emirates Team New Zealand here in Bermuda. Guy, we're fascinated by the two guys at the helm here. Can you shed any light on the Ainslie-Spithill rivalry?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're obviously ex-teammates, but very good at match racing, so it'd be no surprise to see a really aggressive start here. And the ultimate goal is obviously to hit the line with speed, but one step further is to have the opposition head to wind while you're crossing the line.
Okay, driving here.
Okay, he jive.
Go for us.
A bit.
Holding it slow here.
Lane line will come quick.
Turning up.
Okay, he turns up.
Turning up hard.
Got the clutch.
Race number 15 of the 2nd round robin stage. It is the final race of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. Sir Ben Ainslie's Land Rover BAR against Jimmy Spithill's Oracle Team USA, who of course will not race again here for 2 weeks now, skipping the next phase and preparing as defenders for the match itself.
45.
Fairly tame pre-start so far, but this is when the sparks traditionally fly, with Spithill going in for a hook
Killing nothing.
and gaps off at the very last second.
Killing nothing. Yeah, hit on the foil. Still racing.
They think they're racing, we hear Slingsby saying, so that means they think they're on time for the start, or maybe even late.
Got to be a degree of bluff and double bluff in here. Who's doing what? Who is expected to do what? What will Ainslie do from this position?
Well, you just heard Ainslie say, so annoying. That means clearly he thinks a mistake was made, and give this start easily to Jimmy Spithill.
The Americans off to a flyer then against Sir Ben Ainslie and his British crew. The wing wash coming off the American boat and disturbing the air of the British.
Almost 5 knots boat speed difference, and that is that wing wash. You see Spithill actually positioning himself what we call on top of, right directly in front of, slightly to windward, and really slowing down. 5 knots between the two boats, and that is absolutely what Spithill is trying to do. This is not something that just happens to be happening. That is absolutely what he is trying to do. Not a very happy Ben Ainslie after that pre-start.
Dog eat dog. 35 knots from the Americans, tearing around the first mark.
And likely trying something different. Again, this is it. They're going to be testing and training, for the most part, on their own for the next couple of weeks. This is their last hardened battle that they're going to have. So they're trying to go away, and you always talking about teams going into their bye weeks or whatever. They're going into their bye 2 weeks. And they want to go in on a high note where if you're Ainsley, you're just looking to keep improving because you're going to have a tough match tomorrow no matter what happens.
It's going to be fascinating to see who the Kiwis choose for their opponents in the Challenger playoff semi-finals. They will get the option to decide their opposition, and we'll learn that a little bit later this afternoon in the press conference. I would suggest that the British would be right up there in terms of choices for the Kiwis.
You just never know. I think a lot of it has to do with weather forecasting and who you think is strong in the next few days of weather. Weather people, for the most part, can give you a decent idea of the next 2, maybe 3 days. So they'll be using that weather forecasting to make their decision as much as anything.
Not much on it.
Pretty slick jibe by Ainsley right there. Everybody seems to be turning slightly more aggressively. Again, that copycat mentality. Certainly, Emirates Team New Zealand has taken that to an extreme on how quickly they spin the boat in tacks and jibes at times. Others seem to be following suit.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, driving here. Holding.
They'll clear the Americans, leaving it very, very tight to the gate.
Doing their eagle with their weather dagger board down. You see that dagger board is down going into that mark. They're trying to get ultimate stability, stay on the foils. Then they pop the thing up and out of the way. That's their eagle.
And the British looking to split the course. Go hunting for air. Hunting for extra speed to try to reel in Jimmy Spithill.
Stand by. Yep, boiling tack. 4, 3, 2, 1. Turning.
Textbook
Just
stuff.
a little lower, Langer.
Gain to him, everyone. 23s.
All right, a little wrong with that. What about the wind direction, Kenny?
Yeah,
23s here, we're in a bit of a
left, like a left wind shift. You see the angles, it's probably the left-hand breeze right now, the angles, and this could actually give Ben a little bit of a break coming out of that left-hand corner.
Yeah, not much. This is your angle. Have you got him? Okay, we're gonna face him.
Next one will be a touch and go.
So I'm going to interpret that. We're going to face him, which means a kind of an old school match race move that you don't see as much of in boats like this. It means they're going to attack smack in front of Ainsley.
1.
Try to use that wing wash again.
Turning.
Turn harder on it.
Okay, stay on our BMGs here.
So a deliberate ploy from the Americans to try to disturb the air that the British are receiving.
Great angle.
Slow them up.
Yeah, that was perfect angle. You can really see smack on top of Ainsley. And they're in sequence net right now. So all of a sudden, you give up a little bit of your lead in order to kind of get control. And that's what Slingsby and Spithill did very, very well right there. Ainsley was split away and again try to create a gap. Let's see if Oracle goes with him.
Yeah, keep it going.
Okay. Let's stand by.
So the manoeuvring has been much more reliable from the British so far this afternoon.
Maybe out of foil.
There go the Americans. They are heading off that way similarly.
Good pressure this way. And need to know when to step up again. Keep the build on.
So the Americans with a reasonable lead, but Savannah Ainsley not too far away. Jimmy Spithill seems very keen, Ken, just to keep him on a relatively tight leash. He wants him within reach, but he wants to keep him at arm's length.
I think if you're a British fan, you got to like what you see right now. You're not falling any further behind, and their tacks and jives have been quite stable
Right mark,
at this stage.
Faber. So just copy BMG.
Another good example of that from Ben Ainsley.
Yeah, I think, again, that day off gave them an opportunity, just a little breathing space in order to sit down and really go through their maneuvers and try to get some more power coming from these grinders through their hydraulic system, technique on how you deal with your dagger boards. You can see, Ali, as we talked about earlier in the day, teams are getting better and better and better. And soon those big mistakes almost become eliminated. That's when it comes back to a faster boat versus a slower boat, because we've seen enough mistakes that I'm sure the crews would say we're learning, we're training, we're testing, we're trying new things. Well, now they're going to start. They've eliminated a majority of those, and the faster boat starts kind of coming to the forefront.
He will tag, he will follow him with his hammer. We're going to go over later, come in hot.
Brits are doing okay here. They got to be very happy with what they're seeing on this leg. By no means has Oracle Team USA pulled away. We saw earlier in the day, Oracle Team USA fine with Emirates Team New Zealand. So the Brits got to be really pleased with what they're seeing right now.
Staying in touch. The defenders looking pretty comfortable themselves.
Probably displacement layer.
Must be an enormous comfort to know that they got that first victory in
really
the opening race today against the New Zealanders. How critical it might prove in the final analysis.
Big speed difference between the two boats right now. Oracle having a harder time, I think, getting up on their foils than BAR.
Here we go, Pop.
Really soft here. You're gonna have to lead him, I think.
Into the gate go the British. And again, an altogether more clinical manoeuvre than we saw a couple of days ago, even from the British crew. They're right there.
They're right there, and now they're thinking about the geometry of the race course. They're thinking about positioning. They're thinking about where Giles Scott likes the breeze. He's looking for those dark patches that we talked about on the water, the puffs in the water.
Yeah, no higher on right height.
Bad waves for a while.
Just take a halfer off, Jimmy. I just don't want to wipe out.
Still trying to come down. Bad waves, bad waves. I think just a big check there. I'll go.
So let's bring in Guy Endine again, part of the
30 seconds to boundary.
Kiwi team here in Bermuda. He's on the water for us. Guy, anything you're spotting out there that we haven't seen? Any critical element that might make the difference between these two?
No, well, I think they're kind of trying to match each other's modes at the moment. I saw for a while there, Oracle sailing a little bit deeper, looked quite fast, and sort of wanting to sort of get on through under BAR, and it's a nice dive by BAR then. They seem to be manoeuvring really well, and I think it's been a trend of the day for BAR, so well done to them.
So, Guy, I mean, I'm not trying to pin you into this corner again, but is there anything on BAR you see that might change your mind as to how they look going into the next round? Because, I mean, I guess you just said it. We've been talking about it. They look far more stable than they have in this lighter breeze in past races.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely improving every time they go out. And I think today's probably an example of a boat which is a slightly better setup than other teams in terms of their configuration of boards, rudders, because they seem to be maintaining flight through the tacks pretty nicely, and the jibes as well. But for Team New Zealand, I mean, it's not a bad pick going into the semis. You know, with his starting ability, Ben's a really good match racer, so you never know. It could be a good matchup.
Yeah, copy that.
Is that a hint?
Okay, jiving.
I'll have to wait and see.
Your turn.
It's all about the subterfuge and the secrecy. Cloak and dagger.
We see boats constantly opening up, what appears to open up considerably on the run. You have to remember that when you round that weather mark, let's say a 100-meter lead turns into a 200-meter lead just because of the acceleration downwind. And we should see it shrink up a little bit down at this bottom gate. So that's one of the reasons why the gaps seem to expand and contract so quickly.
Build here, and we're going to go.
Tough. Celia at this lured gate. This is a tough move. They pull this off, then they're way more stable than they've ever been, and they do. Wow. Very well done.
So a big speed differential at the moment. The Brits gaining all the time on the far side of the course.
Better pressure, it's all heading
It's become a kind of constant mantra of each team, isn't it? This notion of daily improvement. But we have to listen to them when they talk about it, because it is very real. It is what they go and do in their time off the water that counts so much when they come back. Changes are put into play, and all that experience brought to bear.
Essentially, we look in the upper left-hand corner, lighter air, but for the most part, a dead neutral race course right now. No right-hand shift, no left-hand shift. The wind coming smack down the middle of the race course.
Oracle Team USA in control of the race at the moment, but Sir Ben Ainsley and his British crew are not too far behind, and they will not be shaken off at this point. They are being terrier-like, snapping away at the Americans' heels.
Yeah, I'd like to be in a high groove in this light stuff. Yeah.
There's the American tactician, Tom Slingsby.
Okay, BMG now.
He's looking back at the mode of the Brits, trying to again position that wing wash to do a little bit of damage, but as you can see, it was a couple 100-meter lead on the run, and it immediately turns into a 100-meter lead on the beat. So this is one mistake away from being a very, very close race.
Just keep coming a little further. Okay, happy.
3, 2, 1.
Now attack from the British. And there go the Americans too, almost simultaneously. I think one more should be enough to safely get through the gate, Ken.
Yes, and what Spithill had to understand right there is going all the way to the boundary, that extra little bit wasn't going to make any difference, because they're going to have to do one more tack into this gate anyway.
We will tack there away.
Copy.
I've got to give a bit of oil. Yep. We've got quite a few maneuvers coming up.
Now, this doesn't set up well at the top gate, though. Remember, this next little run is very quick. You would rather round the left-hand gate mark if you were given your druthers here. You would absolutely want to round the left-hand side. Oracle's set up right now to round the right-hand side. That means a couple more maneuvers after they go around the gate.
Turn hard.
So a bit more of a challenge potentially facing the USA here. We're entering a critical stage.
We'll be going down a little belly here,
Let's see if Ainsley tries to do a tack around the left side of the gate to minimize one jive downwind. He's got to do something here right now. He's running out of time.
Okay, stand by.
One off, Demi.
Happy.
3. Okay, standing by. 1. Okay, tacking.
There's Oracle's jive, and they're going to have to do another jive right at that mark. So they're going to have to do 2. There's Ainsley heading for that left-hand favored gate with only one jive to go. They'll be grinding some hydraulic fluid right now, I'll tell you that, because they got one more jive coming up here in about 30 seconds.
Holding here, please. In 10.
Such a short leg.
Standing by.
And the British have plenty to do from here. The Americans are a blur of activity as they round the final mark and head for the finish line. It's looking very much as if they've done enough now.
They both did what they had to do. Oracle spent their extra maneuver on the run, on the downwind leg. Ainsley had to try something. They pulled off attack and then a quick jibe, and yeah, they're a little bit behind, but I'll tell you, Ainsley looked really smooth in this race. If it weren't for that start, they started out ahead. There's no reason they wouldn't have stayed ahead. They looked as stable as they have looked in lighter air through this entire event thus far.
Trying to chase them down, but it will surely be in vain from this kind of distance. Good boat speed from both of the teams, but it's looking like being America's day. Ruthless as ever. Jimmy Spithill with the prize firmly in his sights.
This is it for Oracle for a while. This is the last kind of in pressure, hand-to-hand. Sure, you can go out and test and train, but it's always a different feeling. These guys, when you start a race, when you're racing for real, you're racing in front of the cameras, certainly it's a different feel. And they have 2 weeks off. The defender goes off on his own, and the challengers will keep battling it out. We're going to have more of this craziness starting again tomorrow. Bicycles and
no let up. Straight in, no delay after the qualifying stage, straight into the Challenger playoff semi-finals. The lineups to be confirmed a little bit later on this afternoon.
At the final press conference, right? I think that's when the Kiwis are going to make their choice.
That's when the big reveal is. The Americans, though, completing their qualifying campaign with another victory. Britain seen off and ensuring that if anybody is to rip the America's Cup from their grasp, they will have to come at them very, very hard. What about that for a flyby?
That's a good flyby too. Not quite as good as Artemis, but you know, the judges will give them maybe an 8.6.
Huge applause, huge cheers greeting the Americans. Bonus point for them, safely secured a key leg up in their quest to retain that famous trophy. Britain coming in behind, some way back, but in defeat. Positives for Sir Ben Ainsley and Land Rover BAR. Broadly, a day that they can be pleased with and proud of. So confirmation then of all the results today, that all-important one at the start of the day for the Americans over the Kiwis, which gave them that bonus point that they can carry through to the match. Victory for the Brits over the Japanese, for the Swedes over the French, and for the USA over Great Britain. Here are the standings. The USA sitting on top. They're well clear on 9 points. New Zealand in second, Britain in third, the Swedes picking up pace all the time. The Japanese still yet to find their form, really. And the French, as we know, with just 2 race wins here in Bermuda, eliminated. So the Americans, unquestionably the happiest crew in Bermuda this evening as we head onwards towards the playoffs. That extra bonus point tucked in their back pocket for the match itself. And we bid au revoir to the French and their smiling helmsman, Frank Camas. A class act, a brave campaign. It's goodbye from Bermuda.
Frank's got his work cut out. They're the newest here. It's kind of rags to riches for these guys.
And a fairly chastening experience, first time out for Groupama Team France.
There's a tall hill to climb here for the French team. Really good, solid moves by Frank Camas.
They are there. What a turnaround for the French.
We are very happy for sure to win this race.
So proud of all the team. So proud of Frank.
Groupama Team France. Really the story of the America's Cup so far. Frank Camas is pulling it out of the bag. A tremendous victory, edging out Land Rover BAR. Still in it, still in the hunt. The French trailing in some way behind. Very canny work from Jimmy Spithill. France have to leave everything out there now. No second chances. The French challenge fading. The Kiwis cross the line, and that means it is over for the French. Eliminated at the qualifying stage. A crushing blow for Franck Camas.
Let's just hope that they have the ability to keep this program together and come back roaring next time around.